Hello, I'm Mary Lynn Morris from the University of South Florida, and you're watching Tampa Bay Community Network.
Hi, I'm Linda Saul-Sena. Welcome to Culture Vultures. It is my great pleasure today to introduce you to Mary Lynn Morris. She is a USF professor in the dance department, and she has some extraordinary inventions to share with us. So, Mary Lynn, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I read about what you've created, and I really didn't understand it until I saw photographs and images. Would you mind sharing that with our viewers?
Sure, absolutely. I began what's called the Rolling Dance Chair Project some time ago, actually initiated in 2005, and I've been working on an invention which is essentially a wheelchair. It's a mobility device that a person would use in a very unique way. So it's an innovative type of wheelchair. Several patents have been granted for the chair. And what it allows is actually for the individual to have a wireless control.
You know what? I think we should actually go to images of this and then talk about it some more afterwards, because a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Just watching her event today, I found myself not able to stop smiling. And this, to me, is just the epitome of the extra step towards freedom.
This chair is very different than regular power chairs and existing commercialized manual wheelchairs because it is controlled via smartphone. So essentially, when you tilt the phone forward, the chair moves forward. When you tilt it back, the chair moves back, and also moves on diagonal directions because the chair is also completely omnidirectional.
I don't have to use wheels for this. I feel free to move on my own. In my other chair, I have to use my wheels.
My manual chair can sometimes be difficult to push, carry things. It also doesn't move all in directions I would like to move. The other chair, I can use that for moving sideways, diagonally, things that this chair just doesn't do.
I think it's very exciting seeing Mary Lynn dance with her, or me even being with her, seeing that freedom, that closeness.
You know, Mary Lynn's rolling dance chair is the epitome of exactly what we're trying to do here at USF as far as getting faculty across different colleges, different departments across the university to work together.
The office worked with Mary Lynn and the other inventors to strategically protect the intellectual property as the technology's been developing. It's very important to have a commercial partner like Vertec, even more so in an area where you have such significant safety concerns and you have a population that's going to vary greatly in mobility.
Another aspect of this chair that's really unique compared to other wheelchairs is that it really restores those psychosocial connections in such things like the height change, so that we're allowed to have eye-to-eye contact, just the ease of hugging, walking side by side, hand-held as well, because the person doesn't, again, need to worry about controlling their chair. They can just connect.
When I'm in the chair, I feel free.
Mary Lynn, that is a fabulous, fabulous invention.
Thank you.
Could you explain some more to all of us about the fact that it moves in different directions?
Sure. And that's what omnidirectional means. Most wheelchairs move only forward and back and turn. They rotate. But this wheelchair moves forward, back, rotates, and also moves sideways and on diagonal directions. So that's omnidirectionality. That improves accessibility in general in the environment, but also from a dance context, you can imagine a lot more spatial possibilities with a device that really traverses the space in that sense.
How is this controlled?
So it's controlled with a wireless control, which is very different than most chairs, which have a fixed stationary control, either a joystick control or, if with a manual chair, wheels that you push.
Right.
Which cause your hands to be affixed to the chair. What I was trying to do was free up the upper body, allow the body to just move in subtle ways and the chair to move with the body in that way, and free up the control system. So it's controlled actually through the platform of the phone. So this is what we're using as our wireless control. The phone has been programmed in a very specific way for this chair, and we continue to work on the programming. And so the individual can use it in a hand if they want to, If you tilt the phone forward, the chair moves forward. If you tilt it back, it moves back, sideways, sideways, diagonal directions if you want to rotate this way. But also what we do is we wear the controller. So then the body can really direct it. We've tried wearing it actually on the head, and of course the controller can be made much smaller than an existing like smartphone kind of size. And so we're really exploring what parts of the body can be used as the control for different disabilities. Because some individuals, depending on what their mobility issues are, the torso might work really well for them, maybe the back. One dancer that I work with, Dwayne Schooneman, who has a higher level spinal cord injury, we've actually tried it on the back for him, and he was actually in the video, one of the individuals pictured in the video, and then tried on the head, and it's actually amazingly helpful and easy to direct with the head, forward, back, side, side, rotate, rotate. So there's just so many possibilities with a mobile control. It's a mobile wireless control, and that's very different.
When I first heard the concept of a dance chair, I had no idea how open-ended the movement that would be allowed. Start at the beginning of your journey. How did you come to have this idea, and how have you gone through the process of developing it?
Oh, sure, absolutely. It has been a long, not linear process, definitely circular, and lots of people have been involved along the way, lots of collaborators, and very appreciative to the different collaborators that I've worked with. So I've been working with engineers, and from my perspective, what I was looking to do was looking at this device from an artistic perspective, from a dance perspective. How is it a performance device? So you think of it that way, and then also in my background, my father was in a really severe car accident, and my mom and I were caregivers for him for many years. He had many types of wheelchairs, and so just working with him and his needs and seeing what the difficulties of the chairs were had opened up some ideas for me about how the caregiver could differently interact. If most caregivers are in a position where they need to push the chair if it's a manual chair, and that places an individual behind the person. Well, you can't really, it's a different relationship. You can't really talk to a person who's behind you. And so thinking about, well, how can maybe a controller work with someone still walking maybe side by side, where you're still having an interpersonal conversation. And so a mobile control, right? A mobile control. The caregiver it makes it easier on the caregiver. That's another thing. People forget that anytime you have a mobility device, that the mobility device is not just about the individual, the user. It is about all the people who surround that user, the families, the friends, the partners, the partnerships. So it is an interactive device, and it has to be approached from that sense. You don't want to isolate the individual. So in this situation, the other thing, caregivers often have a lot of burnout because of that.
Well, you talked about the traditional chair. It's almost a cage.
Right.
And I had never thought of it that way before. That was very illustrative, and it made me think that's true. And many of us have had experiences at different times in our life of having friends or family members in a wheelchair, and it is a distancing thing.
Sure.
And what you're creating is the ability to have this interaction.
Right, trying to bring people closer, and of course that's what dance is about, right? It is about relationship, it's about people having duets and working together, and there's lots of, physical interaction. It's about really emotional communication, and so it really is thinking about the psychology of what goes into being in a device and how it makes a person feel, and how you can support their mobility in really beneficial ways. The other thing, though, with the containment, I will say that part of the reason that wheelchairs and devices, assistive devices, have been built that way is for safety, and there are safety concerns, and that's important. So it's a balance of trying to figure out safety and creativity.
I loved the interaction with you and the little girl who was so excited to feel free.
Right.
Her expression of delight at having that freedom was it was delicious to watch.
Thank you. Yeah, that's Jessica Hendrix. She's one of the students we work with here in Revolutions Dance in Tampa, and she is in a wheelchair, and she loves dance, and she wants to be a choreographer as well. She keeps wanting to create dances herself, and so yeah, I mean, I think that existing devices offer some good possibilities, but we have to push those limits more, and that's where you have to think very innovatively about disability and about devices, and try to bring multiple perspectives to the table. So it's artists working with engineers, you know, working with technologists, and working with health professionals, all of those perspectives to the table to really, you know, do things that are healthful and very fulfilling for individuals. And disability affects everybody. You know, it's not, I mean, that's the thing about this project, is it is not about, you know, isolating one population or attending only to one population, but rather, you know, disability, whether you have temporary limitations or long-term limitations, we all have changes in mobility or different, we have sicknesses and things. And then aging, you know, a lot with aging, and disability comes with that. So it's something that we all need to, I think, have our awareness heightened for.
So how have you pulled together these different communities? To me, arts and engineers are not necessarily on the same page. How have you created the dialogue so that your concept has been translated into a device?
Well, I think there have been, you know, like anything, there's really great partnerships that work really, really well, and then there's ones that, you know, work okay. And so it is also about finding a kind of chemistry with the person that you're working with. The collaborative process involves a lot of communication. So both people have to be willing to ask, I want to say, you know, stupid questions sometimes, and just, you know, and so that the engineer says, wait, what exactly are you trying to do in dance? Or, you know, it really has to kind of expose themselves to what is mixed ability dance, you know, and how are these people working together, and what are you trying to create? In the same sense on my end, you know, trying to educate myself about, you know, wheel technologies and what are existing technologies out there, and how exactly are they working, and what are the best types of materiality, the materials to use for lightness and transportability and all of those things. So a lot of communication. I mean, I think just, and an openness in terms of not being too glued to one thing, but being willing to see more possibilities and just recognizing its exploration together. How
many years has it been since you had the idea and you've now got a chair that's very mobile?
Brings it together,
yes.
Basically, is a nice prototype that kind of is the idea. It actually, I initiated it in 2005, so it's been, you know, 10 years now.
But that actually, for such a radical concept, it's warp speed.
Yeah, it's been, I think pretty good. It's always nice if things can go a little bit faster. You know, that we had funding issues and various kinds of things, and again, it is, working with the right people where you can really progress. You know, and so, you know, sometimes it's also, there's a serendipity about, you know, how you connect with people and the people that you find, and the timeliness of things. So yeah, I'm very happy where it is right now. Obviously want it to develop further. Obviously want it to get into the hands of people who could really use it, and want to keep exploring it with choreography, but also exploring daily living potentiality of it. I am now working with 2 companies in the wheelchair industry, National Seating and Mobility and Quantum Rehabilitation, and we're just starting this kind of journey together. So really hoping that we'll be able to develop a robust product together with that expertise.
That's fantastic. I think what we're going to do now is take a brief break, and Mary Lynn, we'll see you in a minute. Thank you.
Creating a corporate video is the fastest way to deliver any message online about your business. Many companies are now switching their primary marketing focus to online video-based strategies, and as such are seeing a much higher return on investment. Video sharing sites like Vimeo or YouTube have the potential to get your videos seen by millions of viewers, simply because videos posted on these sites are shareable. A corporate video can be the gift that keeps on giving, as it can be used in a multitude of different ways. The video can double as a brand awareness tool. The video also can be repurposed or cut down to a promotional style. With an experienced, creative, and award-winning staff, TBCN is the right choice for all your video and audio production needs. To learn about how we can help you expand or refine your business through the use of video, call us at 813-977-5200 and visit us at tbcn.org.
Welcome back to Culture Vultures. I'm Linda Saul-Sena, and my guest today is Mary Lynn Morris, and she is a USF professor of dance. We're discussing this fabulous invention of hers. Welcome back. So we were talking about mixed ability dance. And could you explain that for our viewers?
Sure. So mixed ability dance started around the 80s. As far as U.S. history goes, there's also some mixed ability dance that also started in the U.K. kind of around the same time. And it brought together dancers with disabilities and what we understand is typically able-bodied or typically bodied dancers to work together in companies at a professional level. And that's really when, instead of it just being something that people explored on the side as a nice thing to do because it was therapeutic, it started to become this thing that was really recognized professionally. So it's called sometimes integrated dance, mixed ability dance, inclusive sometimes dance. It usually has been historically with dancers with physical disabilities, not necessarily mental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, or other types of disabilities. Although that's where the conversation's going, where people are trying again to be more inclusive with other disability communities too.
So, did this coincide with the Americans with Disabilities Act legislation?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you can see a relationship in terms of the timing. So, you know, you had the socio-political activity happening, but then you also see all this happening kind of in the dance and in the arts area too. So certainly I think those things are related from a political perspective. And certainly the ADA coming into being in 1990 was very helpful and productive for supporting, I think, the continued growth of mixed ability dance and recognizing it as a viable art form and you know, supporting that. Companies that are well known or sort of pioneers in the field are Access Dance Company and Dancing Wheels here in the U.S., Canduco in the U.K., and we have a company here in Florida called Revolutions Dance, which is the company I work with here. Dwayne Schuneman is the founder of the company.
So I understand you're having a performance.
Yes, yes, we have a very exciting performance coming up, actually funded through a National Endowment for the Arts grant.
Congratulations.
In collaboration with VSA Florida, headquartered at USF.
What is VSA Florida?
They are an arts and disability organization that provide programming for individuals with disabilities in all of the arts, and they're statewide. And their VSA is actually all over the U.S. So, and outside of the U.S. as well. It was originally started by Gene Kennedy Smith out of the Kennedy Center. And so we're partnering together, myself with VSA, and I've basically been kind of the coordinator director of this event, and also working with other collaborators, Revolutions Dance, and the Confucius Institute, USF World, a number of different sponsors, and are sort of helping to support this all coming together. It's a big event. We're bringing about seven or eight artists with disabilities from different parts of the world: China, Belarus, the U.S., Canada.
I never think of these things as being international. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, so I wanted to try to expose our USF dance majors to dancers with disabilities who are doing really professional work and in different dance genres. So, for instance, we have Luca Petrelli coming, who he calls himself Lazy Legs, and he dances on his arm braces. And he does in the hip-hop breakdance kind of area.
Wow.
And, he's from Canada. He has arthrogryposis, a muscular degenerative disease. Siddiqui Kandi out of New York, he does West African dance and drumming. And he originally contracted polio when he was 14 and just learned to walk on his hands. So he's an amazing person.
Wow.
We have two ballroom champions coming from Belarus, Anna Gorchakova and Igor Kisilou, and also Lu Yan from Beijing. She was supposed to perform a solo in the Beijing Olympics in 2008, but had a terrible fall a few weeks before the performance and was unable to perform and has a thoracic spinal cord injury. So she's coming though, an exquisitely trained dancer, and she'll be working with me actually with the dance chair. So we'll be creating some choreography together, and it'll be an opportunity to finally really push the chair and see what its possibilities are.
Will your regular dance students participate in seeing what you're coming up with? And
Yeah, absolutely. So from an education perspective, a big goal was to heighten disability awareness and the awareness of artists with disabilities and what they're doing, and to provide opportunities for these artists. But for our students to really see that and to see different bodies portrayed in dance, and that it's not always, it's not always two legs and a particular aesthetic for dance, but that many bodies can participate in dance in different ways, and that all of them can be articulate and expressive and communicate in really potent ways. So I think for our dance majors, it'll be, they're going to be taking classes from these artists as well as watching them perform. So
can the public come?
Yes, absolutely. The public performance is October 16th at 8 p.m.
There's a whole area that you've brought up today that I was never aware of before. So we can go online, I'm sure, and see some of these things. But what's so interesting is to even think, you're really expanding my awareness. I've never thought of even myself as a relatively able-bodied person capable of dance, because most dancers are so extraordinarily talented. Exactly. So this is a very exciting idea that we can think of our capacity as human beings in much broader terms.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that there is a lot of conversation around in the field talking about how, of course, to continue to make it rigorous artistically. And so that is still a question, though. What is dance? What qualifies as dance? So we still are exploring those questions in terms of training. How do we train individuals with disabilities, especially because disabilities are so unique? Every person's unique, but particularly, one person with cerebral palsy is different than another person with cerebral palsy, and different mobility issues, and so how do you train? What is a tendu in that context? What is a plie in that context? You know what I mean? And so it's looking at our training in really unique ways, and that really is very exciting. For me, it's very exciting as a teacher, as an educator. To look at how disability in general pushes or can push our field into new ways of looking, new ways of understanding what a dancer is, and new ways of training, really training for dance.
Well, I remember the first time I saw Pilobolus, the modern dance company that uses several bodies sort of pushed together to create really forms that hadn't, right. And I'm thinking there might be possibilities for that with some of the mixed dance choreography.
Individuals, yeah, absolutely. Because if you think about that, that's so much about just exploring form and relationship in some abstract sorts of ways. And again, it's not about a step, or just a step qualifying as dance, a specific thing qualifying as dance. It's much more about, again, what is the expression, and so how do you play with what the expression is that you're trying to go for, and that could be communicated through different bodies. In fact, different bodies, might do it extraordinarily better than what we understand as a typical body or something like that, stretch the artistic limits.
Absolutely. Well, I know in the visual arts they're playing with the idea of when people who are differently abled create art, and it's definitely a different aesthetic, but it's extremely powerful and valid.
Right.
I guess that's what you're pushing the envelope with in dance.
Right. And we'll just keep pushing and see what happens.
From your childhood, when did you conceive of this idea? I think you had mentioned your dad's accident helped shape your consciousness.
Sure. When my dad's accident happened, I was 12 years old, and so still a child. And my experience of my dad had been very playful. I did a lot of interaction with him, very close interaction. We had just a lot of play and fun in our relationship. And so once he became disabled, it wasn't just the disability that made him different or made it difficult to have that same relationship, but it was also the devices that he was in. And that's something that both my mom as a caregiver recognized too, that her relationship changed not only because of the brain injury and those things, but the devices he was in, how they contained him, didn't allow quite the same kind of access, that you're used to. So how do we push our technology to make sure that we can maintain our social bonds and our family bonds and those kinds of things. You know, you look at the amount of veterans coming back.
Yes, I was just thinking of
Yeah,
that.
who have disabilities, and they're young, they have families, they have kids, and just thinking about, again, how do we think very inventively about that, and making sure that the family can still interact in really productive and in healing ways, and stay emotionally connected, and not feel like they, you know, a device or this other thing kind of pushes them away from their significant other. You know, I think, you know, probably most people, once they have an injury and if they are in a wheelchair, the last thing that would occur to them would be dancing. You know?
Absolutely.
And so, you know, to really flip that, you know, and say, actually, you know, actually it's possible. Actually, this is a possibility, and here's how it can happen.
I see you as being one of the most creative and innovative thinkers, and I'm so thrilled that you're here in Tampa Bay, because you're out of the box thinking, not only in this particular realm, but it's sort of inspiring to make you look at other assumptions and say, how have I been limited in my expectations? And how much broader can we think?
Right, and I'm guilty of it, you know, absolutely myself, because I remember when I was first beginning to teach dancers and some of the children with disabilities, you know, sometimes you'll just think, no, I think that, you know, I think that's all they can do, or, you know, or maybe I shouldn't push them because they probably, maybe that's something that they can't. And then you just realize that that's your own, sometimes your own barrier getting in the way, and your own perception and your own misperception. And so we always have to keep deconstructing our stigmas and our, you know, we all have discrimination, you know, as has come to light, you know, most recently with all of the things going on. But we all have those little things, and we need to notice them.
Well, Mary Lynn, you have totally inspired me today, and thank you so much for what you're doing. Well, I really want to see your dancers in action. But thank you so much for joining us. This has just been very inspiring, very exciting, and
be here.
Very innovative. Oh, my pleasure. And thank all of you for joining us today on Culture Vultures. Please tune in again, and we'll have many other fascinating guests, although you really brought a very fresh perspective. Thanks so much.